again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the host of the podcast. I'm also the interim dean for the College of Fine Arts and Communication here at Western Illinois University. Today, I'm talking with Ben Winterrowd, a two-time graduate from WIU with a bachelor's in broadcasting in 2011, and then a master's degree in sport management in 2013. First of all, Ben, I hope I got that right, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to see you again.
Yeah. And so, we're going to get into all the different times that we've talked about sports and how we met and your time here at WIU. But obviously, you've got some orange on today, and the folks are probably wondering what's going on. Can you give a life update? Tell everybody what's going on in your life, where you're at.
Sure. So currently I am a associate director of communications in the Clemson Athletic department, working primarily with men's basketball and men's golf, and then work every single home and road game. I don't travel, but every single home and road game for football as well.
So you've got the orange on, and of course, Macomb High had orange for, and so you must have lots of orange in your closet.
Yeah, I tell you what, the best part about the job was all the orange that I wore for Macomb High broadcast and all the purple that I had for Western Illinois. Getting to wear purple again here was awesome too. So I've got tons of colors that I've worn for years, ties that I've worn for years. So it's been good.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be at that level of athletics and what your role is. But let's go all the way. I always like to start about growing up and influences on a young person. You grew up in Naperville, outside of Chicago, and what kind of things were influencing you early on? Family, neighborhood, friends. What was life like growing up for young Ben?
Very active, pre social media, a lot of video games too. It wasn't like the best thing to always be inside playing video games. So I was always outside playing sports, pretty much everything under the sun, even things that we made up as kids in the neighborhood too. But I would say, a lot of my close friends that I went to school with, ones that lived around me, my parents and my brother especially, really fostered that love of sports in general. And then I kind of kept funneling it into things that I thought that I could be good at and things that I could do as a career. Because I knew I wasn't going to be that D1 athlete or play in the NBA or, you have all those dreams, but it was never going to happen. But I took all of those experiences and my love for sports and have carried that on.
Yeah, obviously I know your parents and I know that they have always been very big supporters of you. And I'm sure that you felt that encouragement to explore what kind of skills and what kind of ways you could make your way in life.
Yeah, I think one of the things, one of the biggest bonds I would say in my family is just like baseball in general. My dad grew up in St. Louis, so he instilled very early for me to not root for the Chicago Cubs, which was hard when all of my buddies were Cubs fans, Sammy Sosa fans, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to root for this team now, with no real, idea of who the Cardinals were at the time. And realizing how big of a deal it was for my grandfather, even who lived just outside of St. Louis. And, it's funny, like when I was in high school and I was starting to decide what I really wanted to do as a career, whether it was kind of in sports and figuring that out. I always thought about, so my grandpa would always sit on the couch. He'd have the TV muted with the Cardinal game on, but he'd have the radio. He'd have a portable radio that he would replace batteries in sitting right next to him, and he'd have the radio on. And I remember for the longest time as a kid, I wanted to be the guy talking through that radio with my grandpa sitting there. And so that's kind of what my dad and I would talk back and forth, and we figured out broadcasting would be kind of a cool thing to do. And that's where it kind of all began.
Yeah, that same story for me. I grew up listening to Cardinal baseball and radio. And that's, when I remember very early on when Jack Buck and Mike Shannon would say, if you're keeping score at home, and I thought as a kid, they want me to keep score at home. So I started making my own score sheet and follow along. So I put down all that kind of information. But that was, it's funny how those kind of things end up shaping and guiding us and putting us in a particular direction. And you kind of mentioned high school. Was there something along the way that you thought, okay, well, I'm interested in college, and what can I major in? Where would I eventually study?
Yeah, there was, so towards the end of high school, it took me a while to kind of figure out what I wanted. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to obviously go to college. I just didn't know what I wanted to major in, what I wanted to emphasize on. And as a junior and senior in high school, still playing, 3 sports and being heavily involved with that, it left little time to kind of figure everything else out, or at least for me, it did. But one of my really good friends who also came with me to Western Illinois, Tom Carroll, and I went to high school together, and he started broadcasting high school basketball games, just like streaming it on the computer. One of our friends is really good with computers and figured out how we could do it. And he started to do it that way. And I kind of helped him with that a little bit, but not as much, and realized how much I actually enjoyed that. And so I remember I really only considered 2 schools when I was, when I was going through that college process. I think my school gave us, like, you could apply to 3. The high school would let you apply to 3, and then you could do it on your own. So I applied to Notre Dame just to get a letter back with my name on it.
Nice.
I knew I was never getting in there. And then I applied to Western Illinois and Southern Illinois, which you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And, it really, the turning point really was getting all of the information from Western Illinois. And then I think, I'm trying to remember, it was, as a senior in high school, I went to a Schaumburg Flyers game that you guys were at, kind of like recruiting, and up in the Chicago area. And I did that. And then the one time in high school, I came and helped carry cable during a football game, wearing my high school hoodie, which was not smart. I should have had something purple on, but I got photos of that somewhere my parents took from the stands. But, we went down, visited my grandparents, and did all that. And that kind of just all sealed it for me.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember, we make that offer to a lot of young people to come work with us and get a feel. And I remember that was, you really, when you're pulling cables and you're doing all the hard work, you get a taste. But there's nothing like doing a football game.
Right. And it showed me, you as a kid, you see broadcast and you're like, oh, it's just 2 guys talking. No, there's a billion other people that help put that on that are equally or more important than the people talking on TV. Yeah.
So when you come to WIU, what was I'm trying to, transition into what was the first thing that you remember doing broadcasting related?
So the first thing I did was a radio show on 88.3 with Tom Carroll and Kevin Pomazol.
Nice.
We got randomly assigned. It was me and Tom that wanted to do it together. And then we got randomly assigned with Kevin.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to meet Kevin, who's one of my best friends from Western. And that's how I met Ryan Thomas, because they were all doing stuff with the newscasts and everything. And so we did that. That was the first thing I ever did. And honestly, our first show, this will date me. Our first show was, right after Appalachian State beat Michigan in 2007.
When they returned the block kick?
Yeah. Which is kind of an omen for later, I guess. My first show, we were talking about App State winning the biggest game they've ever won, and then I ended up working there, but we'll get there. But that was the first thing I ever did, and felt that out probably freshman year. But I'll never forget that towards the end of freshman year, kind of the summer, coming to your office and not really even having an expectation of wanting to do Western Illinois stuff, but wanting to do some sort of a broadcasting, anything. And that's when the Macomb High stuff really picked up. And I still have that. I mean, I still love Macomb High. I still follow everything that they do.
Well, the thing is, and I always tried to tell our young people when they started doing that, I said, the parents appreciated the coverage, and weren't afraid sometimes to correct the announcers and yell up to the stands, "It's pronounced so-and-so. It's Blazy."
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of funky pronunciations that you got to learn. And ones that you don't get help with are definitely the Macomb High ones, because you go in there with no expectation and you just got a list of names and you're like, oh man, is this Severs or Severs?
Mm-hmm.
And you figure it all out,
Yeah.
And you like, part of that was good for me was learning how to develop relationships, you know what I mean? And learning how to foster those and learn who, you see faces at every game, and they start to see you at every game. And that was like the real big first one, was doing for TV3 was doing the Macomb basketball broadcast. And then that's when I think a little bit after that is when Kip Jones, and I forget who he was working with at the time, they came over and were discussing that they wanted help with Macomb stuff and Illini West stuff. And Tom wanted Illini West because they just won a state championship or whatever. And I wanted to keep doing Macomb High. And so that's fostered that, which lasted all the way through grad school. Like that was a long time.
Yeah. And, Kip is an alum of ours and was such a, was one of those early mentors. I'm sure we're going to talk about people that have mentored you along the way, but was one of those individuals that, saw something in you and helped you develop, again, professionally.
Yeah, no doubt. And, all of that experience, just, I kind of learned that I preferred radio. Probably. I felt like you could have a little bit more fun on radio than, it wasn't as professional. I mean, it was professional, but you could be a little bit more laid back, radio wise, than on TV. And I was always nervous before every women's basketball broadcast I did. And including when I transitioned over a little bit for a couple of games for the men, I was a little bit nervous too. But, I always preferred the radio side of it. And, I know I'm jumping around, but in grad school, I did the sideline stuff for football and got to see, traveling with the Division I football team, what that was like. And, so like some of these experiences were just, they're invaluable.
Yeah. And it really was, as you mentioned, when you look back about how it was giving you a little bit of a taste of what you might do for your career.
Yeah. And, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's amazing to me that you have had this path where you've been involved with athletics over this long period of time, but you're still using different skills and adding to your tool belt and all those kind of things. It's just been really and we're going to get into all that stuff, but early on about all these things all these doors keep opening up for you.
Yeah. And, and doors that kept opening up skill, because I didn't know anything about producing video at that point, and I remember just my early experiences with Macomb High and watching newscasts that we would do and seeing like, we're doing these newscasts and we're talking about the Bulls and the Cubs and stuff. I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking people can go other places to learn about the Bulls and the Cubs, right. Like we need to be doing, like, there's a need for people to learn what's going on at Macomb High. Like there's kids right down the street that are really good athletes that are going to play college. I mean, Brett Taylor was in the NFL for, a little bit, training camp and all that. And so that I saw a need. I'm like, we need to be reporting WIU stuff, but Macomb High is something that nobody has been doing. And so I really tapped into that. And that's when I started to learn kind of video production and doing, those news packages. And eventually they were asking me to make highlight tapes and all that. I was learning all that too. But that was something that just kind of like tapped into skills and I was able to use for some projects here and there. But I owe that experience with Macomb High to a lot of stuff, a lot.
Well, you've already mentioned a few names of the characters you're hanging around with in Salee Hall, but there were so many that were, and so I want you to talk a little bit about how some of those people were, why they were good friends and also good colleagues for you.
Yeah, I would say number one for me, I've mentioned Tom Carroll. I've known him forever. I've known him since we played 7th grade basketball together. So that one was special to have him there to kind of going through that process with me. You know, we lucked out being on the same floor in Henninger. And so that was fun. You know, meeting Kevin through the radio show, you know, I was just at his wedding last summer. And you know, it's amazing that how long these relationships go and how much you talk. You know, I'm in a group chat with him every single day. Him and Ryan Thomas both, you know, we still talk about everything. And so Ryan was one that I had met through Kevin. Those were some of the early on ones. And then I'd say middle of the way, you know, one of my best friends ever, Sean Ingracia, is someone that I met because he was producing almost everything as a student, doing a ton of women's games, men's games, football games, coach's show. Yeah. Pigskin preview. And so meeting him, you know, he had that fire for video production and creating, you know, with Final Cut and everything. And so that's someone that I leaned heavily on when I started to get into that, you know, in terms of concepts and creative and everything like that. You know, it's really, you know, I start to think about some of the names. I mean, it's just like, it's almost endless. There was so many people that I met through broadcasting that I still talk to this day. You know, I see Kyle Schasberger at ACC Media Days still, because he does his radio show and has a table set up there. So I see him there every time I'm going with Clemson basketball. You know, I see Andrew Bacon almost every single big time event. You know, I just saw him at the ACC tournament in March. You know, speaking of that Chatham pipeline, him and Sean. I saw Danny working for Drake now. So it's pretty cool to keep seeing people that you know, but also, you know, when people ask you where you're from or when you went to school, and I say Western Illinois, you know, you might know it, you might not, and then someone says, "Oh, Leathernecks." Yeah, you know, it's like people know it. You know, it. You might not think it at the time that it's a national brand like that, but it is.
Well, and you guys you're the ones out there making that legacy, and that's what makes me very proud to see your success. And certainly there were lots of faculty that were helping you achieve the education that helped get you where you are. Let's talk a little bit about some of your former instructors.
I would say number one, and it's not because you're here, but number one is you. Just in terms of like, you know, my comfortability in broadcasting, you know, because you knew my uncle John. And so like there was kind of that prior relationship a little bit, even if we didn't really know each other yet. You knew of me, you knew I was there. And so it was very easy to reach out to you for help and, you know, hey, I want to maybe do this. And you're the one that opened that door for Macomb High and which opened the door for a lot of other things. So you're number one on my list for that. And I very much appreciate it. And I still have at home in my office, I've got the photo of both of us from the banquet after I got video announcer of the year. I still have that award right next to a photo of both of us from 2011. So it's still up in my office at home. So you're at the top of that list. Don Norton is another one that really helped me understand. One of the main things he helped me understand was making yourself more versatile in like broadcast performance and helping me with my voice and helping me, because I came in with a very thick Chicago accent, or at least I thought I did. Mm-hmm. And now, you know, that's one thing that's really helped me is not making myself, he didn't want everybody to be so regional, or he wanted everyone to have the opportunity to branch out, because he knew that, you know, accents matter. And, you know, you sometimes you get the word typecast maybe in broadcasting in a certain region, maybe based off the way you speak. And so he helped me really enunciate and speak better. So he was one. Dan Klaus, another. Roger Sadler, another. Tom Durso, of course. You know, what a legend that guy was. Yep. Just helping me with everything. You know, everyone really just had their hands in something different that helped mold me throughout my 4 years. It wasn't everyone did the same thing. It was, you know, you could reach out to different people for different things. And, you know, Sam helped me with video production stuff, even though I never took his class. he would help me on the side when I would be in the editing bays and Final Cut, and I could reach out to him for help. I mean, it was, it really felt like a big family up there, regardless of the faculty that came and went, or, even students that came and went. It just felt like a family up there. I walked up there. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I just kind of walked up to the third floor, and I was just like flooded with memories and like nostalgia and, so many. I was like, how many hours I spent in this building. So, I mean, it was just such a joy.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, certainly most students will recall is either spending lots of time in editing rooms or in the radio station, or in some cases in the sports truck, because, a football game would take, you would be wasted the entire day. Although for some of you announcers, sometimes you guys would take off as soon as the game was over. You'd be like, okay, buzz, see you later.
Yeah. I tried to help pack up some tripods and stuff.
So after you got done as an undergraduate, and you went into it, which is really what was cool, is we started this seeing more of a transition for some of our students into the graduate degree for sport management. And you transitioned really well over to athletics because, like so many of our graduates, you had the opportunity and the ability to help athletics in a very unique way.
Yeah. And, you develop those relationships too. I mean, that was the cool thing about Western Illinois, is that you never really felt, like, I don't want to say titles didn't matter, but you felt like you could go up to anybody and have a conversation, and, like at the time, the AD was Tim Van Alstine, and he didn't feel like a very standoffish guy, and none of our coaches felt standoffish. Everyone was very approachable. Coach Hendrickson is who I probably worked with the most football wise. And he was such a great guy, very personable, very easy to work with, very funny. And, it just felt that way throughout athletics. And I knew I wanted to continue my education. I felt like it was important. I wanted to get my master's degree, being the first one in my family to do it. And, I wasn't really ready to leave Macomb yet. Like I felt like kind of unfinished, even when I graduated broadcasting, I felt like there was more I could do. There was more I could, help with. There was more I wanted to accomplish. It didn't feel like, the 4 years kind of flew by, and there was just kind of some unfinished business maybe, and more I wanted to do. And, very happy because you helped me with that too. I mean, I remember coming and talking to you about it, and you had brought up sport management and everything that it kind of entailed, and the relationships that we developed through broadcasting with our coaches at Western. Right. That was all awesome. I was able to kind of experience a lot of different departments and shadow a lot of different things before I kind of settled on communications.
And were you still able to do some of the Macomb High stuff? I can't remember.
Yep. I kept doing radio, football and basketball with Kip. And then I remember Coach Boehner had the interest in football when I started doing the sideline reporting my first year of grad school. I did sideline with the Leatherneck Sports Network with Bo. And I'm trying to remember who he did games with. I can't remember. But I did that with Bo Spencer at the time. And that's when I kind of stopped doing Macomb football, but kept doing Macomb basketball, and, developed, all those relationships. I still talk to Seth Wickert. Like, he was the point guard on that team. And like, I still talk to that guy all the time.
Yeah. And it's funny because he followed the same sort of path.
Yeah.
That you did, different undergraduate major though. But so before we get done with WIU and start talking about your professional journey, I want to see if there's a favorite Macomb memory, something that when you get with your WIU friends, and what kind of things do you guys talk about and say, do you remember, and we'll keep it clean.
Yeah. It's a lot of, when I talked to like Ryan Thorson, Mike Broskowski, Sean and Gracia, it's a lot of just like, oh man, Salee, you know what I mean? Like I took a photo when I was there and just took a photo of the outside of it, sent it to our group, and everyone just was like, oh my God. Like, I feel like I never left. Like, I feel like, because we were there all the time. It was a lot of those moments, a lot of just moments of being at, games together, doing broadcasts together, traveling together, to different sports. I did that one road trip to Southern Illinois with Sean and Julio Rosseo. And that was, it was just such a great, experience. All those experiences are, I think we talk about just hanging out together. Talk about being in the truck. I can still see the truck like it was yesterday. Like I could see everyone sitting where they should be. Like I'm standing kind of in the middle and I could see Tom to my left. I could see Sean up in the front left, like directing, you behind me. We're all just laughing, having a good time. It didn't feel like work.
Eating Domino's pizza.
Eating Domino's pizza. Yeah. That was one thing. When I left Western, I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever eat Domino's again.
No, I've never. After I had so much Domino's, I don't think I could ever eat that pizza again.
Yeah. And, I just like one that really sticks out is just doing all the Macomb basketball stuff. I think one of my favorite things was that holiday tournament that they played at Western.
Yeah.
And, just the time that I had with Kip and everybody Macomb High wise. And, when your son was on the team and, that was just a blast. It was getting to do all that stuff and watch them win a regional. And I think they went to QND and won. I think my last year doing it, they went to QND and won, which was such a big deal. And, so it's a lot of that stuff, and really just kind of, it felt like immersing myself in the Macomb community more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the high school stuff and even some of the Western stuff really helped out there.
My favorite memory, one of my favorite memories with you is we were at a Macomb High basketball game. You know where I'm going with this?
Maybe.
And there was a player on another team that had a mullet.
Yes.
And you said, you texted me and you're like, does he actually have a mullet? And you said something about, the party or the
business in the front, party in the back.
Party in the back. I remember that. And we had a big laugh about that. And then the next day he was interested in coming here and ended up coming here.
I remember that. I remember that. He played for Sherrard.
That's right.
Sherrard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was a very good broadcasting student himself. So it was just
his name
funny.
Jake?
What's that?
Was his name Jake?
Jake. Yep.
Okay. I know who we're talking about then. Yeah. He was great.
Yeah. He was terrific. And so it just, I'll always remember that. That was a funny game.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you left and you get this opportunity to go to Appalachian State, and that's a big move away, and you're on your own. What was that like?
The process was interesting because I had really only been working in the media services, now athletic communications at Western, for a little over a year. Because I spent that first year at grad school kind of figuring out where I fell. Mm-hmm. Decided on communications and, worked my butt off that entire year. I think I got like a graduate student of the month award once. Pat Osterman, who was our head SID, had nominated me for it, and I was able to receive that. And so, that really helped me, work even harder. And then I remember applying. I think I applied to about 70 different internships, college, professional, everything, and had, 3 to 4 interviews that I really took seriously. And then one of them, just so happened, Appalachian State, the head SID there was there when Pat was at Georgia Southern. So Pat knew him pretty well, knew that it was a good athletic department, knew that Boone was a nice place, nice, safe place to live. And sight unseen, I just accepted the internship. Never been to North Carolina really in my life, I don't think. and just said, you know what, I'm doing this at App State. And my dad's like, okay. My parents were like, all right, well, we'll figure it out. Drove my Jeep, 700 miles all the way to Boone, and got started at App State. And it was, what an experience that was. I got to use some of my broadcasting stuff, did a lot of PA early on, and did a lot of voiceover stuff for highlight videos and things like that. But
cool,
it was cool to continue some of that, early on. And, that's the crazy thing is my time there and my time here now. I mean, the industry has changed so dramatically, as I'm sure you've seen with just, video production is just boomed, over the last 10 years. It's just kind of insane how it's taken off. But yeah, I'll never forget just one day being like, you know what, I'm just going to go to App State. I'm just going to do it.
And, we're going to get into this a little bit, but, as you mentioned, I always appreciated with the sports broadcasting major that you guys had some opportunities to do announcing and do production and do some writing, because of those things you were almost going to have to do and almost transferable skills that were going to be able to be utilized in so many different types of jobs. And it's good to hear that was valued, especially even at App State, you were getting to use those skills in a lot of different ways.
And you know what, the writing that we had to do in broadcasting, where you had to keep it, you couldn't be wordy.
Yeah. Keep it simple,
you had to be time sensitive on all of your writing. And so that helped me, I was already a pretty good writer, but I was wordy. And so that helped me. That still helps me today. I mean, learning how to be concise and get to the point and, value words, it's helped me to this day.
So how did you transition then from App State to Clemson? Because at some point, again, you must have been proving yourself. Somebody must have thought, yeah, Ben, you're ready for the next level.
Yeah. Well, so the internship I did at App State was only 10 months. It wasn't like a 2-year, GA or anything, because I was just a graduate student. So it was a 10-month internship, and then it was move on to a full-time job or something of that nature. And I remember having a conversation with my boss. I said, I need more experience. Like I need, I'm not ready for a full-time job. Like I need more experience. So I'd like to do the internship for a second year. And he was all for it, because I'd shown to him how hard I worked and everything. So, he didn't have to turn it over. And it was someone that was familiar with the school and coaches. And so I did that for another year. We had a full-time person leave, so he promoted me after that year to full-time. And I started working that year with men's basketball, and basketball is my favorite sport. So at least to work with communications wise, I have a lot of favorite sports for different reasons, but I worked 2 years with men's basketball. And then I see on COSADA's website, I see an opening for men's basketball at Clemson. And I'm like, man, like the ACC would be awesome, and Clemson's, I mean, I don't know if I'm good enough for Clemson. And so I applied, and I remember being at one of our assistant coaches' houses. We were hanging out, grilling, and I kind of just half said, I applied to Clemson. He's like, well, why didn't you tell me that? I'll say something to Coach Brownell, or I'll say something to Coach McKay, who was over here. And I was like, oh, wow. And so I started getting, texts from one of their coaches, and, eventually make it on campus. I did a couple phone interviews, get on campus, and spent an entire day, which felt like a whirlwind, and got back to App State, and a few days later got a call that they were offering me the job. And I was sitting in the parking lot before I was going into my office, and I just said yes. I was like, I'm coming, like I'm doing it. And that was really, it goes back to me coming into your office and kind of asking, to do something, unique or different, and start Macomb High. And, I learned early on, be comfortable being uncomfortable. I get very comfortable in situations and never want to leave or even make my way up. And so learning to challenge myself, which I did as a sophomore or end of freshman year, sophomore year in broadcasting, learning how to challenge myself, learning my limits and where I can go. And that really carried me, through grad school, trying out different things. It carried me to Appalachian State, trying out different things. And it really propelled me into applying to Clemson and doing a good enough job to get offered and say, yes, I'm going.
Nice. And so let's talk about because I'm sure some young people are saying, let him talk about what he gets to do. What's his responsibilities? So talk about some of the things you've been able to do there at Clemson.
So it's grown over time, but I handle all the PR for men's basketball and men's golf. And then I help, I get to go to every home football game and help at every home football game, help with football games on the road. But basketball, I get to travel everywhere with them and handle all their PR. I do a lot of photography and videography now. We've had this thing in the past called the vlog, which are like 6 to 7 minute episodes that I've put together. A number of them. We've had creative people that have done it, but I put together a number of them to keep my skills kind of sharp and ready to go. And so I'm in charge of all of the Clemson basketball and Clemson golf social medias, as well as the traditional SID things, doing the media guide, doing the press releases, setting up interviews, promoting team that way. But being in charge of social media, I mean, that's a lot. Yeah. I remember my first ever sporting event was a cross country meet at Western Illinois in the pouring down rain. And it's like, I started in the pouring down rain at Western Illinois at a cross country meet. And then it's like, I'm sitting here in Death Valley doing a football game. Like, it's crazy. It's sometimes I got to pinch myself because it's crazy to think that this is where I am and this is what I get to do. And it's such a joy to be able to interact with student athletes every day, coaches every day. But I would say on a day-to-day basis, it's a lot heavier into the creative side. I still have all those traditional responsibilities of a sports information person, but getting to travel with them is such a unique opportunity. Go to the NCAA tournament. We went to 2019, we went to Italy. Clemson's basketball team got picked for the World University Games. And they went to Italy to compete as the United States and won a gold medal. So I got to cover and have a gold medal at home. And, who would have ever thought I'd have a gold medal? Not me.
Did you get to go to Italy then?
Yeah. Yep. Naples.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. It's, the places that the job can take you are just, it's endless. This August, basketball is doing a foreign tour to France. So get to go to France for the first time ever.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I try to give that as brief as possible. There's so many responsibilities in my job. I'm a editor on our donor magazine. So our donor magazine through IPTE, which is our big fundraising arm of Clemson, they generate 8 issues a year. And so I do a bunch of writing for that, a bunch of editing for that. And so that's almost like doing another sport, but it's another responsibility too.
Well, that's what I think is so it's such a remarkable part of your job is you're getting to write, you're getting to use your video skills, you're getting to interact with the press, because I think that, your past history as a member of the press, you understand what kind of things they need to have to inform the public. And of course, at Clemson, there is such an audience that people really want to have as much information about their athletic programs as possible.
And that's I remember doing women's basketball and men's basketball games and having, a set of game notes in front of me that I didn't know at the time was done by an SID, and it gave you all the info on every player, record chasing, stats, fun notes on the team. And now I'm the one that's making that packet for former me. I every single game I've got about 40 to 45 pages of Clemson basketball notes that I print out for TV and radio and our media that come to games. And, they use all that stuff to help promote Clemson basketball, talk about Clemson basketball and really spread the word on everything that they're doing and our players and what their backgrounds are and all of that.
And life is good in the South.
Yeah. Like I saw a thing the other day that said Chicago hadn't had sun once in 45 days. And I'm like, man, it's 85 and sunny here.
You don't rub that into your parents, do you?
I do. I say, I go out of my way to complain our one day where we have snow for 4 hours and then it goes away. I'm like, man, it's snowing. Like, why won't this just go away? And my dad and my mom just send back these emojis. I'm like, are you kidding me?
And the old friends, do they ever come to visit you?
Yeah. So Ryan and Mike are planning a trip out here at some point. Sean and Gracia and Chelsea have been out here a few times. I mostly come back because that's where everyone is. So it's always easier for me to be the one that comes back.
Sure.
But no, I've had a bunch of my friends come out here and visit me so far. Still got Kevin and Ryan, because RT is doing SID stuff as well. So trying to get them to come to a football game maybe once would be awesome. But we've also all talked about trying to come back for homecoming one time.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So we always like to end our discussions with what kind of recommendations that you might have for a young person like yourself. And let's hear what you have to say.
I think, through my experience, it's always reaching out to those in whatever department you're in or people that and asking, what can you do? Like, what's an opportunity I can learn a new skill or be involved with something different. Cause that's what really did it for me was, I did that radio show early on and was comfortable doing that, but wanted to do more. And I knew there were already people kind of in, that order of doing the Macomb or the WIU broadcasts. And you presented me with that Macomb opportunity. And that was amazing. Trying out and being able to do that. So I would say, don't wait to ask for an opportunity. I would say, rush into an opportunity, try to get your feet wet as soon as possible, get involved with anything and everything, really spread your wings early and develop relationships early and let that carry you.
Yeah. Well, I will say once you started doing that, Ben, then all these other doors started opening up.
Yep.
And you have always had that courage and that inner confidence to walk through them. And I couldn't be prouder. And I think that I'm sure your family is as well. I know they are.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I owe a lot to you. So,
well, it's been great to catch up with you, and hopefully next time I will not miss you when you are back in Macomb.
Yeah, no, we'll make sure I see you. Okay. I appreciate it.
And thanks to all of our weekly viewers out there. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast or want to recommend someone, just send me an email. We want to hear from you. We also hope that you continue to watch and listen to the podcast and just appreciate everyone's support. So until next week, stay safe, take care, and God bless.